The space station, Pearl of Progress, hung like a giant silver wheel against the backdrop of swirling purple nebula clouds. Inside its gleaming halls, Gray sat at his desk, staring at the endless stream of paperwork on his screen. As a Level 3 administrative officer of the Stellar Council, he had spent the last 15 years watching others climb the ranks while he remained stuck in the same position. Gray's thin fingers drummed against his desk as he processed yet another trade permit. His pale blue skin had lost its usual shine from spending too many hours under the artificial lights. The 3 small horns on his head, once a proud display of his species' heritage, now felt like nothing more than decorative bumps that got in the way when he tried to rest his head on his desk in frustration. "Another denial of promotion," he muttered, looking at the message that had just popped up on his screen. Reason: insufficient exceptional achievements. His large purple eyes narrowed as he read the words for the 10th time. The break room was empty when Gray walked in, his steps heavy with disappointment. He grabbed his daily nutrition pack and sat down near the large window that showed the busy space lanes outside. Ships of all sizes moved through the designated paths, their engines glowing like stars against the dark space. As he watched a massive trading vessel dock, Gray opened his personal tablet and began his usual habit of browsing through ancient council laws. It was a hobby he had picked up years ago, hoping to find something interesting in the dusty digital archives that might help his career. That's when he saw it. Section 47,593B of the Ancient Combat Rights. He read aloud, his voice getting higher with excitement. Any sentient being may challenge a council member to ritual combat. Should the challenger prove victorious, they may claim the position of the defeated, provided they meet basic administrative requirements. Gray's hands shook as he read further. The law had never been removed from the books. It was still valid, buried under thousands of years of newer regulations, but still legally binding. "Computer, show me the weakest known spacefaring species," he commanded, his mind racing with possibilities. The screen filled with information about a relatively new species from a small solar system in the Orion Arm. Gray leaned forward, his eyes widening as he read about these creatures called humans. "Perfect," he whispered, a smile spreading across his face. "They only achieved spaceflight a few centuries ago. They haven't even developed proper genetic engineering yet." Gray spent the next few hours reading everything he could about humans. They seemed primitive by council standards. Their bodies were fragile, their lives short, and their technology basic. Most importantly, they weren't even full members of the Stellar Council yet, just observers with limited trading rights. Back in his office, Gray began drafting his plan. He would create a fake tournament, broadcasting it specifically to Earth. The prize would be something humans couldn't resist: ultimate cosmic knowledge. They would surely send one of their entertainment fighters, someone trained for show rather than real combat. Gray looked at his reflection in the office window, imagining himself wearing the golden robes of a senior council member. The law was clear. The combat had to be fair and witnessed by at least 3 council members, but nothing said he couldn't choose his opponent. "Computer, begin drafting tournament announcement protocol," Gray commanded, his voice steady despite his excitement. "And search for the most popular human combat sports. We need to make this look authentic." As the computer began its work, Gray stood up and walked to the window. Below him, the busy lanes of space traffic continued their eternal dance. Soon, he thought, he would be looking down at this view from the senior council chambers, all thanks to some primitive human who would never know what hit them. Little did Gray know, his perfect plan was about to meet the most dangerous thing in the galaxy: a real human with real combat experience. 2 weeks after his discovery, Gray stood in the massive broadcasting center of the Pearl of Progress station. Around him, dozens of screens showed different angles of his carefully crafted message being beamed toward Earth. The tournament announcement looked perfect, flashy enough to catch human attention, but official enough to seem legitimate. "Begin transmission," Gray ordered, watching as his message joined the countless signals crossing the vast space between the station and Earth. The false tournament advertisement sparkled with holographic effects, showing mighty warriors from across the galaxy competing for the ultimate prize. Ultimate cosmic knowledge awaits the champion. The announcement proclaimed in Earth's most common languages, glory, wisdom, and power beyond imagination for the one who proves themselves worthy. Gray had spent days studying human entertainment broadcasts to get the tone just right. In his private office, Gray opened his secret files. The computer displayed profiles of Earth's most famous entertainment fighters, muscular humans who fought in rings for show and profit. He had studied their moves, their limitations, and their predictable patterns. None of them would be a match for his superior alien biology and technology. "Computer, show me the response rate from Earth," he commanded, expecting to see immediate interest. The screen remained blank. Hours passed, then days. Gray's confidence began to waver. On the 5th day, a single response arrived. Gray nearly fell out of his chair in his rush to open it. The message was simple: Earth accepts the challenge. Competitor will arrive in 7 standard days. Just one. Gray muttered, his purple eyes narrowing. This wasn't what he had expected. He had anticipated dozens of humans fighting each other for the chance to compete. A single challenger seemed too organized. The week passed slowly. Gray spent it preparing the combat arena, a massive circular platform suspended in a zero-gravity chamber. He had chosen this setup carefully, knowing that humans struggled in zero environments. His species, naturally adapted to space travel, would have the advantage. On the day of arrival, Gray stood in the station's main docking bay, surrounded by other council members who had come to witness the event. His elaborate formal robes sparkled under the bright lights as he waited for his soon-to-be victim. The human ship that docked was not what anyone expected. Instead of a flashy sports vessel or diplomatic craft, a rugged, battle-scarred mining security ship clamped onto the station's docking ring. The ship's hull showed signs of recent repairs and what looked suspiciously like weapon damage. The airlock cycled, and Gray's confidence took its first real hit. The human that stepped through wasn't wearing bright colors or showing off muscles. Instead, Tom walked out in simple, well-worn space armor, moving with the quiet efficiency of someone who had done this thousands of times before. "Permission to come aboard," Tom said calmly, his weathered face showing neither excitement nor concern. His eyes, however, missed nothing, scanning the room with professional attention to detail. Gray tried to hide his unease. This human didn't move like the entertainment fighters he had studied. There was something different about him, something that reminded Gray of the veteran Council security forces. "Welcome to the Pearl of Progress," Gray announced, trying to maintain his ceremonial tone. "I trust your journey was uneventful." Tom's slight smile didn't reach his eyes. "Mostly. Had to deal with a couple of pirates in the Kuiper Belt. Nothing unusual." He said it the same way someone might mention stopping for fuel. As they walked toward the quartering area, Gray noticed something else disturbing. The human was studying the station's layout, noting security positions and exit routes. This wasn't the behavior of someone who had come for glory or entertainment. This was the methodical assessment of a professional. For the first time since conceiving his plan, Gray felt a cold knot of worry in his stomach. What exactly had he gotten himself into? The first mandatory pre-combat meeting took place in the station's grand conference room. Gray sat at one end of the long table, while Tom sat at the other. Between them, holograms displayed the tournament rules and combat regulations. As per tradition, Gray explained, trying to sound confident, all competitors must demonstrate their skills in 3 preliminary challenges before the main combat. He waited for Tom to look impressed. The human just nodded, his face remaining neutral. The first challenge was supposed to be simple, a test of zero-gravity adaptation. Gray had designed it himself, expecting to watch his human opponent flail around helplessly. Instead, Tom pushed off from the starting position with practiced ease, moving through the obstacle course like he had been born in space. Impressive, muttered one of the council observers. "He moves like a deep space veteran." Gray's hands clenched under the table. "Where did you learn to move like that?" he asked Tom afterward, trying to keep his voice casual. 15 years of deep space mining security," Tom replied, taking a sip of water. "You spend enough time chasing pirates through asteroid fields, you learn a few things." The second challenge came the next day, a test of alien technology comprehension. Gray had set up a complex puzzle using advanced council tech, certain that no human could understand it quickly enough to solve it within the time limit. Tom walked around the device once, studying it from all angles. Then, to everyone's shock, he started dismantling it with quick, sure movements. "Interesting design," he commented as he worked. "Reminds me of some salvaged tech we found in an abandoned mining station last year. Though this is a bit simpler." Gray's blue skin had turned a pale shade of gray by the time Tom reassembled the device in half the allowed time. This wasn't going according to plan at all. The third challenge was meant to test combat reflexes. Holographic opponents would attack from random directions, and competitors had to defend themselves using only approved tournament weapons. Gray had programmed the system himself, incorporating attack patterns that he thought would be completely alien to human combat experience. Tom stepped into the combat zone with the same calm he showed everywhere else. When the first holographic attacker appeared, he didn't even blink. His movements were economical, precise, and deadly. Each strike found its mark with professional accuracy. "You seem familiar with these combat styles," Gray said afterward, his voice strained. Tom shrugged. "When you fought actual alien pirates trying to hijack your cargo, holograms aren't too challenging. Though I appreciate the realistic touch you added to the Centaurian wrestling moves." In his private quarters that evening, Gray paced back and forth, his 3 horns aching from stress. He pulled up Tom's official file again, looking for anything he might have missed. The human's background showed years of military service before moving to space security. There were several commendations for combat against hostile alien life forms, and multiple confirmed victories against space pirates. "Computer," Gray whispered, "show me the statistics of deep space mining security incidents in the past decade." The numbers that appeared made his purple eyes widen in horror. The survival rate for security officers in deep space was incredibly low, yet Tom had thrived in that environment for 15 years. A message popped up on his screen, a request from Tom for information about Gray's species' traditional combat techniques. For research purposes, the message said. Gray stared at the message for a long time. The cold knot in his stomach had grown into a ball of ice. He had wanted an entertainment fighter, someone who played at combat for show. Instead, he had gotten a battle-hardened warrior who had spent years fighting for his life in the harshest environment known to any species. What had he done? The day before the main combat, the Pearl of Progress Station hosted a formal diplomatic dinner. It was tradition for competitors to attend, giving them one last chance to withdraw honorably. Gray sat at his place of honor, picking at his food while watching Tom interact with the council members. The human had cleaned up well, wearing a simple but elegant black suit instead of his usual armor. What worried Gray most was how easily Tom moved through the crowd of aliens, showing no signs of discomfort or uncertainty. He spoke with different species as if he'd been doing it his whole life. "Tell us about your most challenging combat experience," one of the council members asked Tom over dessert. The whole table fell silent, eager to hear the human's response. Tom took a careful sip of his drink before answering. "There was this incident in the Mars-Jupiter mining zone," he said quietly. "A group of pirates had taken over an automated mining platform. They were using it as a base to raid cargo ships." Gray leaned forward despite himself, watching Tom's face as he continued. "They had better weapons, better ships, and outnumbered us 10 to 1, Tom explained. "But they made one mistake. They thought having better technology meant they would win automatically." Several council members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Gray felt his food turning to stone in his stomach. "What happened?" someone asked. "We used their overconfidence against them," Tom said, his eyes meeting Gray's for just a moment. They were so busy showing off their advanced systems, they never noticed us rewiring their platform's maintenance robots. When the fight started, their own security systems turned against them. Gray dropped his fork. It clattered loudly against his plate, drawing several looks. That's impressive, he managed to say. Not really, Tom replied modestly. Just good preparation. In my line of work, you learn quickly that it's not about having the best technology. It's about understanding how to use what you have. Later that evening, Gray paced in his office, reviewing the combat rules for the 100th time. There had to be some way out of this. He pulled up recordings of the preliminary challenges, watching Tom's performances again and again. A knock at his door made him jump. "Come in," he called, quickly closing the videos. Tom stepped into the office, still wearing his formal suit. "Hope I'm not interrupting," he said politely. "I wanted to ask about tomorrow's combat zone layout. The rules say each competitor can request one small modification." "Yes, that's correct," Gray replied, trying to keep his voice steady. "What modification did you have in mind?" Tom smiled slightly. "I'd like to request that all the lights be set to standard Earth brightness levels." That's all?" Gray asked, confused. His species had superior night vision. Surely the human would want better lighting. "That's all," Tom confirmed. "Oh, and I noticed something interesting in the station's public records. Did you know that your species' eye membranes take exactly 2.3 seconds to adjust to sudden changes in light intensity?" Gray felt his heart skip a beat. The casual way Tom had mentioned this specific weakness made his scales tingle with fear. "Just a random fact I came across while studying," Tom added, turning to leave. At the door, he paused. "You know, where I come from, there's an old saying, the most dangerous prey is the one that knows it's being hunted." After Tom left, Gray sat in his darkened office, the meaning of those words sinking in. With growing horror, he realized that Tom hadn't just been preparing for the combat. He'd been studying Gray's species specifically. All those casual questions over the past week, the seemingly random conversations with other council members. He'd been gathering intelligence the entire time. Gray looked at his reflection in the dark window. For the first time, he saw himself not as the clever hunter he'd thought he was, but as the prey he'd actually become. The morning of the combat, Gray sat in his office surrounded by legal documents. His 3 hands moved frantically over multiple screens as he searched for any possible way to cancel the fight. Outside his window, maintenance crews were making final adjustments to the combat arena. "There must be something," he muttered, his purple eyes scanning through ancient council laws. "Some rule, some regulation, anything." A message flashed on his main screen. "Request for combat cancellation. DNID." Below it was a note from the council's legal department. "As per your own submitted documentation, the challenge must proceed." Gray slammed his fist on the desk. His own careful legal work, designed to trap a human in this combat, was now trapping him instead. He had made the rules too perfect, closed every loophole that might let someone back out. "Sir," his assistant's voice came through the intercom. "The human contestant is requesting access to the arena for final equipment inspection." Through the office window, Gray watched Tom walking around the combat platform. The human moved with the same calm efficiency he had shown all week, carefully checking every corner of the arena. He was wearing his space armor again, but now Gray noticed details he had missed before. Scratch marks from real combat, hastily repaired damage spots, and what looked like weapon burns. "Computer," Gray commanded, his voice shaky, "show me the deep space incident reports from the Mars-Jupiter mining zone for the past 5 years." The screen filled with reports. Gray's heart nearly stopped as he read through them. Pirate attacks, alien creature encounters, space station sieges, and Tom's name appeared in report after report. Not just appearing, but surviving. Winning. A new message popped up on his screen. This one was from the station's security chief. Unusual energy readings detected from human contestants' quarters last night. Analysis suggests weapons maintenance activities. Gray's pale blue skin turned almost white. Weapons maintenance. The human had been allowed to bring only basic combat gear, unless he had found a way to modify standard equipment into something more dangerous. Another report caught his eye. It was from the station's medical department, analyzing Tom's physical condition. The human's body showed signs of multiple old injuries, all healed but leaving their marks. These weren't the marks of entertainment fighting. They were the scars of real combat, of someone who had fought for survival again and again. There was a knock at his office door. When it opened, Tom stood there, still in his battle-scarred armor. "Just wanted to thank you," Tom said casually, "for making the combat rules so specific and unbreakable. It's nice when everything is official." Gray's throat felt dry. "What do you mean?" "Well," Tom smiled slightly, "when I show the Council how you specifically targeted Earth with this challenge, hoping to get an easy win, everything that happens in the arena will be completely legal. No one can stop the fight, no matter what happens." As Tom turned to leave, he added, "By the way, I read that interesting report about your species' pressure points. The one you tried to hide in the medical database. Very informative." After the door closed, Gray sat in stunned silence. The human hadn't just studied his species' weaknesses. He had found and read classified medical documents. How long had Tom been preparing for this? Had he known about Gray's plan even before arriving at the station? The final preparation alert sounded through the station. 1 hour until combat. Gray looked at his reflection in the dark screen, seeing not the confident bureaucrat who had planned this tournament, but a fool who had walked straight into his own trap. And the worst part, he had made sure there was no way out. The combat arena hung suspended in the center of the station's largest chamber. Thousands of spectators from different species filled the viewing galleries, their excited chatter echoing through the space. In the center of the arena, two figures faced each other, Gray in his ceremonial combat suit and Tom in his battle-worn armor. "Begin combat sequence," the automated announcer declared. "Gravity controls disengage. Competitors, prepare for countdown." Gray activated his suit's enhanced systems, feeling the power flow through it. His species' natural advantages in zero gravity, combined with the suit's technology, should have made him unbeatable. Should have. 10 seconds to combat. The announcer's voice boomed. Tom floated calmly opposite him, making small adjustments with his suit's thrusters. His movements were so minimal they were almost invisible. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Commence. Gray launched forward, using his suit's enhanced speed to strike first. His 3 arms moved in perfect coordination, each carrying a different traditional weapon. But Tom wasn't there anymore. The human had moved with a simple twist, letting Gray's momentum carry him past. "Interesting suit," Tom commented casually, as if they were having a normal conversation. "Custom made for your species' 3-armed combat style. Must have cost a fortune." Gray spun around, his weapons ready. "How did you know about the suit?" Tom completed his sentence. "I talked to the manufacturer yesterday. Nice people. Very helpful when I asked about the emergency shutdown sequence." Gray's heart froze. He had only told the manufacturer about the suit 2 weeks ago. How had Tom known to check there? The fight continued, but it wasn't going anything like Gray had imagined. Every time he attacked, Tom was somewhere else. The human never seemed to hurry, never seemed worried. He just wasn't where Gray's attacks landed. "You're probably wondering about your suit's neural interface," Tom said, dodging another attack. "The one that's supposed to give you enhanced reaction time." He tapped his helmet. "Been broadcasting a low-level interference signal since we started. Nothing dangerous, just enough to add a tiny delay to your movements." Gray's attacks became more desperate. He activated his suit's special features, the ones he had kept secret. Energy blasts shot from his weapons, filling the arena with light. Tom moved through the energy blasts like they were a gentle rain. "By the way," he said, "your species' eye sensitivity to light that you try to hide." He pressed something on his arm panel. "Let's test that." Suddenly, every light in Tom's armor flared with the intensity of a small sun. Gray's sensitive eyes couldn't adjust fast enough. His vision went white, then dark, then white again. Through the chaos, he felt something touch his suit in 3 precise spots. When his vision finally cleared, Gray found himself floating helplessly. His suit's power was gone, its systems dead. Tom floated in front of him, holding a small device. "Emergency shutdown code," Tom explained, showing the device. "Like I said, the manufacturer was very helpful, especially when I showed them the evidence that you planned this whole tournament as a scam." The arena fell silent. Even the spectators stopped talking, watching the scene unfold. "How?" Gray managed to ask. "How long did you know?" Tom's smile was visible through his helmet's clear faceplate. "We intercepted your first draft of the tournament announcement, the one where you specifically requested an Earth entertainment fighter. Been planning this response ever since." He reached out with one hand, ready to surrender. Gray looked at the human's outstretched hand, then at the silent crowd, and finally at his own powerless suit. In less than 5 minutes, Tom had demolished not just his combat plans, but his entire scheme. With his pride shattered but his body surprisingly intact, Gray did the only thing he could do. He surrendered. 1 week after the combat, Gray sat in his new office aboard the Earth diplomatic section of the Pearl of Progress station. It was smaller than his old office, and instead of processing trade permits, he now had a very different job: Earth's official liaison officer. The irony wasn't lost on him. After his defeat, everyone had expected Tom to claim his position on the council, as was his right under the ancient law. Instead, the human had done something completely unexpected. "The position is yours to keep," Tom had announced in front of the entire council. "But Earth wants something else instead: real diplomatic recognition and a fair trade agreement." Now Gray spent his days helping human ships navigate council bureaucracy and teaching council members about human customs. His desk was covered with reports about Earth's various space activities, mining operations, colonial projects, and defense initiatives. "Package for you, sir," his assistant announced, bringing in a small box. Gray opened it carefully, finding a bottle of human liquid refreshment called coffee inside. There was a note attached. "Thought you might need this for the late shifts. It helps humans stay awake during boring paperwork. Tom." Gray smiled despite himself. In the past week, he had learned more about humans than all his previous research combined. They weren't the primitive species he had imagined. They were something far more interesting: survivors who had turned their challenges into strengths. A message flashed on his screen. Another pirate attack had been stopped in the Mars-Jupiter mining zone. The report included footage of human mining security ships working alongside Council peacekeepers. The cooperation program had been Tom's idea, sharing experience and knowledge between species. "Sir," his assistant called again, "the Council requests your presence. There's a situation with a new species requesting membership." In the Council chamber, Gray found himself sitting next to Tom, who now served as Earth's official representative. On the main screen, images showed a newly discovered civilization that had achieved spaceflight. They seemed quite aggressive, one council member noted nervously. "Perhaps we should delay their membership application." Tom glanced at Gray, a knowing look in his eyes. Gray stood up, feeling a confidence he had never known in his old position. With respect, Gray addressed the council. "I suggest we learn from past mistakes. New doesn't mean primitive. Different doesn't mean inferior. Perhaps we should try something new: honest communication and mutual respect." The council members murmured in agreement. Tom gave him a subtle thumbs up, a human gesture Gray had learned meant approval. Later, in the station's observation deck, Gray watched Earth ships and council vessels moving together through the space lanes. Tom joined him, both of them now comfortable in each other's presence. "You know," Tom said, "back on Earth, We have a saying, the best lessons are the ones that hurt while you're learning them. Gray touched his ceremonial horns, which still ached occasionally from the combat. I think I understand that saying very well now. Your plan wasn't bad, Tom continued. It just had one flaw. You assumed we would send our best fighter. Instead, we sent our best survivor. As they watched the ships pass by, Gray realized something important. His failed scheme had accidentally accomplished something meaningful. It had helped two civilizations understand each other better. Another human saying, Tom added with a smile. Everything happens for a reason. Gray looked at his former opponent, now his colleague in building bridges between their species. Perhaps, he replied, some plans work out better when they fail. In the space beyond the window, a new Earth ship docked at the station, its crew ready to join the growing community of species. Gray's scheme had backfired spectacularly, but the result was something better than any victory he had originally imagined. Sometimes, he realized, the best victories come from learning how to lose the right way.